Essential Self-Care Podcast, a podcast for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. In this podcast, you will hear real life stories from people who leaned into their self-care as they were navigating life's storms. You'll learn practical tips, tools, and strategies to incorporate self-care into your own busy life as well. You'll hear from expert guests sharing their expertise on specific tools and modalities of self-care to optimize your well-being in your life, career, and relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I am a physician, best-selling author, and founder of Radiant Living Institute, where I guide high-achieving women to get unstuck and learn to live radiantly again through major life transitions. Quick disclaimer before we dive into the episode, please know that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always seek the advice of your own health practitioner or mental health provider for your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome Pasquale Martinelli to the Essential Self-Care Podcast. Pasquale is the founder and executive chef at Alloro Private Dining, where he provides private dining experiences throughout New York City, the Hamptons, and surrounding metropolitan areas. In addition to his extensive history of working at upscale restaurants in Milan and New York City, Pasquale has developed menus and overseen operations at several Michelin star standard establishments. He holds certifications in nutrition science from Stanford University, an MA for lifestyle medicine from Harvard University, whole food plant-based diet certification from Cornell University, and science of gastronomy at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. In addition, he has been featured on the Martha Stewart Show. Today, Pasquale is going to share a bit about his self-care journey. I'm so excited to have you here today, Pasquale. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so sincerely so happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Pasquale, can you tell us about a time in your life that self-care became no longer an option, but an absolute priority for you? And more importantly, what specific tools or modalities did you turn to at that time? What did your journey look like?
I remember really well. This was November 2020 during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I took a photo my client's home in New York that I had to post on my social media channels. And when I actually looked at the photo, I could not recognize myself. I guess I was deep in busy in thoughts during the pandemic. So many thoughts. I was overwhelmed by what was going on, and I guess that's when I thought I really lost control of my self care.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I was waiting. I was really heavy, and I was always skinny, coming from born in Italy, southern Italy. So I could not recognize myself, and this is when I thought I had to do something. And the first thing that I thought was I didn't want to get onto a diet, but I actually wanted to find out more about the function of food,
Mm.
what the food really. I was curious about how the food works in our system. So
Mm.
enrolled myself in one of the courses that I found online. This was about, I think, like in December 2020, and ever since I never stopped. Ever since, researching and finding, and the more I dig into nutrition and spirituality, um, connection. The more I dig, the more I discover the importance of the holistic approach: food, body, spirituality,
Yeah.
and so forth. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to just
yep.
kind of pause right there and reflect on a few things. One is, you described that there was this moment in your life when you were looking at a picture of yourself that you had taken for social media with your, dining experiences and services that you provide, but where you couldn't recognize yourself anymore. And I think that's such a powerful statement because I think so many of us at some point in our self-care journey or journey with towards well-being and living, sort of healthier, happier, better lives, at some point may have a time in our life where we can't recognize ourselves, whether that's recognizing ourselves, physically or mentally or emotionally. Having
Mhm.
this period, just that phrase, I think really resonated with me. And I think will resonate with many of our listeners of just having a moment of not being able to recognize yourself. And then that being kind of the sort of triggering moment to say, okay, what is going on here? And at that time, you reflected on the fact that, as many of us through the pandemic, feeling very overwhelmed, maybe lost in our
Yeah,
thoughts, being caught up in a sense of busyness as well. And for you, this path of, that started with not recognizing yourself led you down a journey of exploring nutrition and food, which is
correct.
so beautiful because you're from what I could see before we started the interview, it looks like your, if not your entire career, certainly the majority of your career has been as a chef, has been related to food. And
Mhm.
so this part of your self-care journey, it sounds like really took you to exploring different avenues and different aspects of food that maybe you hadn't explored before. Does that sound, am I getting that right?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think as a chef, many of us, we are focused on building a dish uh, to mainly to that guests can actually find pleasure out of it,
Mhm,
and not rather building this dish, also thinking of it from a nutritional standpoint.
mhm,
It was like, okay, well, this dish is great, it's amazing, okay, but then I realized that I never thought of serving a dish and but taking consideration how how much can the person can nourish out of this dish or not nourish out of this dish. So the nutrition part was not and it was not in the picture up until the moment. As
mhm,
long as it was great or it is good, I mean, I was born in Italy, and most of our food is pretty healthy. But still, we're living in New York, where you have access to ingredients from all over the world. It was relatively easier to come up with dishes that were not balanced from a nutritional point of view. And then I found out that then these ingredients, each of these ingredients, is a signal for our body. So anything that we put in our mouth is going to go somewhere, and it's going to produce some type of energy, whether negative or positive.
mhm,
Every bite that we eat, no matter what, we think we eat a piece of chocolate and magically disappears.
mhm,
And instead, every bit of food that we ingest, it will go somewhere. So at this point, it better be something that we can actually, yes, enjoy,
mhm.
but also be able to nourish out of it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore. And this is part of why I was so excited to invite you to join me on this show.
Mhm.
There's so much I want to reflect on. And I do want to be mindful because I do want to stick with sort of focusing on your journey for the most part for today's episode. But there's so much that you brought up here. Goodness, one is just this idea of, looking at food as, and as a chef, creating dishes that will create a sense of pleasure,
Correct.
right? For the diners and the clients who are sort of engaging in that dining experience, right? But then also your own personal journey led you to look at, well, what is the nutritional value here as well? And I think it's so interesting, and I love that you brought that because I follow primarily a plant-based diet, and I know many people
Yeah.
who don't follow a plant-based diet. They often have this impression, or some of their first questions to me is like, well, what do you eat? Doesn't that get boring? Or is
No.
all you eat, salads, And it often, or often when I speak with people who are working on transitioning to a plant-based diet, they have a hard time finding meals that also feel delicious and you know provide that sense of pleasure to their taste buds as well. And so knowing that I think for now, I know we're going to dive into deeper on a second episode about sort of the professional ways that you were integrating this. But I think even just hearing and just pointing that out and drawing that out for our listeners today, that as a professional chef, you have found these ways, and it's so
Real
important
choice.
to find those ways. And I think part of it also is even just cultivating that awareness that, oh, this food is here and it's meant to nourish me as well, right? And that the food does send signals to your body. One thing we talk about in Ayurveda is like there's three ways that we interact with our external environment. One is through our breath, right? Because our breath, we're taking in our environment, breathing in and breathing out, right? Another way is through our skin, right? Because our skin experiences the external environment, and also through our food, right? I mean, that's a direct input, direct signal that we're making conscious choice about to put into our body that then sends signals to our body. So I
100%.
wanted to sort of draw out that information, but I want to go back a little bit to your self-care story. So and your journey here. So back in, December 2020, you found sort of the first program, sort of certification program, where you were able to dive a little bit deeper into this. Where did that then take you within your own life with regards to starting to study the nutritional aspects of food and how they interact in your body, and the changes that you ended up making in your own life subsequent to that? Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Reclaim Your Radiance, Radiant Living Institute's signature coaching program designed to help you reclaim your worth, renew your energy, and restore your happiness in your life, career, and relationships. This 6-module curriculum has already helped countless women rediscover themselves through life's storms. From setting difficult boundaries within toxic relationships, to finding their inner strength and power while navigating divorce and co-parenting, to aligning their career and business with their authentic self, and to learning how to live for themselves again after their kids have left the nest. This program has been a guiding force for women to live unapologetically and shine brightly within their lives once again, or often, even for the first time ever. Experience the results for yourself. Head over to radiantlivinginstitute.com/reclaim your radiance to learn more and get started.
The first program was more a curiosity.
Mhm.
But what really changed my life was the whole food plant-based course that I did with Cornell University and T. Colin Campbell.
Yes.
That really, because as I was studying, I was also applying what I was studying in. So I start cutting a lot of animal protein, and then I really start feeling amazing. Like I had so much energy. I was sleeping so, and I still do sleep so well. And I'm not completely whole food plant based, but I really wanted to discover. But I know that every time that I eat meat, it does not give me the same energy when I stay away from it. And I use, not to be confused with the vegan, but whole food plant based I think is the key, is the future of for humanity. This is
Yeah.
the way I see it.
Yeah.
And so, because the energy, the positivity, the connection, then being a chef, this was really hence the whole idea of being able to go to a market, talk to the farmers, be able to share that with my clients, and feeling the connection, feeling the way of almost became even more selfless.
Mm.
I became more generous, I would say. I became more grateful. So all this principle moral principles became more intense. And then once as we are sharing these principles, they come back at you like sometimes like a tsunami. I don't realize what's happening in a positive way.
Yeah.
Unless if you are connected with your own higher power, the way I am connected, then you can find an explanation.
Hmm.
So you say, okay, this is happening maybe because I did this and that. There's some act of generosity or helping somebody, which I do every day. And this is beautiful. Now, not only I feel good with my body, but I feel good with my soul.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
coming. This is coming from the food. This is beginning from the food and sharing all this great energy.
Yeah, this is so powerful. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I want to draw out a few more things from what you shared because you shared so much like just really powerful details here and your experiences. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences with this. So first of all, for our listeners, if you have not heard of T. Colin Campbell, he has done just incredible work in this field of really looking at the research behind the benefits, health benefits of whole foods, plant based diet. Some of the certifications that Pasquale had completed are in lifestyle medicine, whole food, plant based diet. I myself have studied quite a bit of lifestyle medicine as a physician as well. Heard from and followed some of the sort of first emerging leaders in this
Yeah.
this field as it looks right now in our current day and age. And so, and one thing that you had mentioned also briefly that I want to explain just a little bit deeper for our listeners is just the difference between vegan and whole food plant based, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of times people may use those words interchangeably, and while there are some similarities, it's not exactly the same. So eating a vegan diet means eliminating all animal products um, completely, right? Whole foods, plant based diet means that you're trying to eat foods that are more, as much in their whole food form. You're seeking to eat a plant based, which generally is defined as about 95% plants in your diet. Some people eating 100%, but generally even up to 95% plant-based diet. So it's really, you can also think of it as another phrase that I really enjoy is a plant-forward diet. So as you mentioned with yourself, eating, you haven't eliminated meat completely, but you have a very plant-forward diet, right? You're thinking about the plants, whole food, plant-based sort of in your diet. And so I just wanted to kind of draw that distinction because you could easily eat a vegan diet of French fries and tater tots, and that's all you eat, right?
Right.
And that's different than a whole foods
Correct.
plant-based
Correct.
diet, right? Whole foods plant-based would be, eating,
Yeah.
fresh fruits, fresh vegetables,
Mhm.
fresh whole grains, things like that. So that's why I wanted to make that distinction because you could easily eat a vegan diet all of French fries and hash browns and tater tots and things like that, which is
Oh, yeah.
completely different
Yeah.
from a whole foods plant-based diet.
Mhm.
Um, and then also, you mentioned so many benefits that you noticed when you started learning about whole foods plant-based diet and nutrition. And some of those benefits that you noticed within your own life personally was an increase in terms of the physical benefits, increase in energy, sleeping a lot better. And I really wanted to draw out the fact that that was with still having some meat in your diet. And I wanted to point that out to listeners because I think sometimes we can um, I work with a lot of clients, and a lot of times we can stay stuck in situations of not making a change that we want to make for ourselves because we think we need to go all or nothing. And so that's why I wanted to point that out to you or point that out to our listeners from your journey is that even taking a plant forward, right? Even just starting to think about how can you integrate a little bit more of this into your life, you can see clear, demonstrated benefits physically. But then for you, you went on to describe that those benefits didn't just stop on the physical level.
No.
They went on to, how you were showing up in your um, for your clients, the relationships that you are having in communication with going to farmers markets and then bringing that food and just engaging in that whole story to then bringing it to your clients. And then these, higher principles of just generosity and gratitude and appreciation. And so it's just so powerful. And I love that you described to us how it's affected you on so many different levels.
So many different levels. And then you basically I also did a course for integrative nutrition health coach. And one thing that I really loved that I learned there, and I always believed in this, I just didn't know there was actually a terminology for it. They talked about primary food and secondary food. Food on the plate, food off the plate. So the primary food, food off the plate, the emotions.
Mm.
Secondary food, food on the plate. So what I find about myself that when I was every time I cook for somebody, and this actually everybody does it. You don't have to be a chef. So the moment that you cook for somebody, you are not only feeding them physically, but you are feeding them emotions. The person, whenever we cook for somebody, the other person feels good, feels loved. Okay. Now it is extremely important that we understand how powerful this is, and we should practice more. I don't say you cook every day, cook every day. Just enjoy. We don't have to be chef, because if we change our mindset, forget about if it's really a good dish or not. That's really not important. But the action of cooking for somebody, even for yourself, rather than have a delivery, it is a very powerful beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you share that. And I think that's going to be a great sentiment to sort of wrap up this episode too for our listeners. Just something really tangible also that you can take away. It's something that we say in Ayurveda as well, that really the emotions that you bring
Mhm.
towards preparing your food, that energy, just as you mentioned, the food is energy, right? The food gives your body energy, right? Nutrition, all of that. Also the emotions that you're bringing into the preparation of that food, it does transfer over to that energy that you then gain when you're ingesting and digesting that food as well. You're digesting not only the physical food, but also the emotions
Yep.
that you're feeling while you're eating it, but also that went into preparing it as well. And so just keeping that in mind, it reminds me of a story. I know when I was growing up, that's something that my mom always told me when I was growing up, when I was a young child. And, I was always in my books. I was always reading, reading my books. And, if my mom was preparing something, and she didn't often ask me to help out with things in the kitchen, but just little things that when you're a child, you can help out with. She would ask me, and if I, didn't want to take a break in reading my book, she would say, Sheetal, no, the energy that you're bringing to this is going to go to our guests.
Correct.
So
100%.
either do it with a loving energy, positive energy,
Yeah.
right? Or
Mhm.
not, right? And that principle I came to learn later as an adult when I studied Ayurveda is also something that's spoken about very much in Ayurveda. So I love that, and I love what you're doing. Thank you so much again for sharing your journey with us. Can
Yeah.
you share more with our listeners about where they can learn more about you and the work that you're doing and the services that you provide?
I have a website, www dot alloro, Alloro, privatedining.com. Our website. Yes.
Perfect. I will share that website
Yep.
in the show notes below. Thank you again so much for being
Thank
here
you. Thank
today.
you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Essential Self Care Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a positive review, and share this episode with someone you know. And remember, your free guide, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life, is waiting for you at radiantlivinginstitute.com. Download it today.